All right, there you are. Here I am. Here we go. Once again, this is Unleashed. I'm Eric Winalda. Due to popular demand, believe it or not, we're going to have to do a part 2 of an explanation of what the new system might look like in America, or the pyramid, if you will. If you didn't see the previous one, part 1, go back and watch it. If you're just running into this video and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it'd be a good idea to go back. Please do that, because it's going to help our numbers, so which is a good thing. But go back, watch the first one, but let me give you the quick recap, all right? U.S. soccer is very different the way we run things, especially through Major League Soccer. And in the history lesson within was in the year 2000, big meeting, Philip Anschutz owns everything, brings everybody out to Colorado. 10 people enter the room, 3 people leave, Robert Kraft and Lamar Hunt and Philip Anschutz. They buy up the whole league and they ask the question, how do we make this better? They create Soccer United Marketing. Now is really a good time. If you're seeing this for the first time, go back and watch the first one. Soccer United Marketing buys up everything. This is Philip Anschutz being a clever businessman, basically saying, why is nobody watching? What's with all the red numbers? So they created Soccer United Marketing to be the marketing arm of Major League Soccer, and then they raised the money and bought up the rights to a World Cup and said, all right, how do you like us now? We're going to bundle Major League Soccer's coverage into what Soccer United Marketing owns. That's it. You got it? All right, great. They also had the Mexican national team where they got them for a pretty good number, and then I think they made tenfold of what they actually made on that original purchase. Either way, Soccer United Marketing ran the show. I told the story last time. I was working for ESPN. I didn't get a check from ESPN. I got a check from Soccer United Marketing. That's who I worked for. And that's probably why they will never hire me again, because I have issues with certain things. Now listen, when it comes to television, okay, let me give you an idea of what it looks like everywhere else. And maybe this is probably why American ownership is really struggling with the idea of why are we making any money off the TV deal? Right, we're not the NFL. The NFL currently pays $255 million to each team through the TV deal that they were able to broker. Now that is on 7 markets. 7 different networks. Those networks are all over the world. That's from Prime Video to NBC to ABC to ESPN, Fox, all of them are in on that deal. But if you think about that, each team gets a blanket coverage of $255 million before they hit a button on what contract they're going to have to fulfill. So they're already off to a pretty good start. Not the case with Major League Soccer. You could look into the EPL. That's another good one to go with. It's unbelievable. It's $8.6 billion that is paid out. So you can understand that if you're a part of that deal, or you're a part of that setup, and you employ what's called promotion or relegation. I said that in a really condescending way. When you have promotion and relegation, even in the event that you get relegated, you will still get what we will call a parachute payment to make sure that you don't just sink into the abyss. You have the ability to rebuild your business. Now, the argument that I made is that all of this should be based on sporting merit. Sporting merit is why the other leagues have what we would call compelling television. Look, this was at Times Square this past week. That's messy. That's the start of Major League Soccer. Make sure everybody's watching. Careful what you wish for. That was one of the worst fucking games I have seen in 20 years. It was horrible. Both teams ill-prepared, red cards, bad back passes, bad goals. If that's what you are trying to sell, you need to understand that the American public is too smart for that. You can't sell that. You can package it up and you can put a big chocolate coating on that piece of shit, but you're never going to take 2 bites of it. American people want compelling television, not a bunch of guys going through the motions and one guy wearing the number 10 shirt and a pink shirt dribbling through cones. If that's what you want, then great. Invest in the NBA. That's the entertainment league. That's the only place you can go watch 2 fat Europeans dominate. Go watch the NBA. You got Doncic and you got Jokic, and that's it. And these guys, they're crawling up and down the court, but they can make some shots, and God, we love it. Just a step back 3-pointer. Who's the other guy that's falling apart? Harden, the guy with the beard. Can't even run. But hell, man, you give him about, 2.5 feet of space behind the arc. He might sink 3 out of 10 of those. Lately, it's about 2 out of 15. Not very good. Point is, that's entertainment. And if that's what you want, that's fine. If you want to be able to watch a basketball game where they take 3, maybe 4 timeouts per period with a 3-minute break. Well, I watched the game last night with the Knicks and the Warriors, right? Well, actually, you have to say the Warriors and the Knicks because it was at New York, because they do it backwards in the NBA because it's always the away team. Wow. I sat through the first 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and then, oh man, it's not going well. Timeout. Then I watched 3.5 minutes of commercials. See, soccer doesn't have that. They don't have that opportunity to press pause, hit the timeout, roll of commercials. I learned a lot last night about QuickBooks. Man, I know everything I need to know about QuickBooks. And I think it works because yesterday, for some reason, I bought Dove body wash. Never bought that before. That's one of the big commercials for the NBA. See, soccer doesn't have that. They don't have the ability to run a commercial right in the middle of the goddamn game. So there has to be something that makes you want to watch. And it's not going to be entertainment if that's the reality of what we used to think. We used to go get Thierry Henry. He'll dribble through everybody. Go get Lothar Matthäus. He limped around for 6 months and then quit. Donadoni. No, that's not the guy you really wanted. Zlatan, you were entertainment. That was something. Even to the point where you're walking off the field and grab your balls. All of it good. Even you're coming into the league. You took out a full page ad in the LA Times and said you're welcome. I mean, it's cocky, but you came into the game at about, 60 minutes in, scored 2 goals, and you beat your rival, LAFC, and the Galaxy was back on front page news. Well, not like we read the paper anymore, but you know what I mean. He made headlines. He turned heads. He didn't come in here and say everybody sucks, which I thought he was going to do, but he didn't. He just proved that it's not a very high level of soccer. Now, I spent the whole weekend watching Major League Soccer. And the unfortunate truth is I got up pretty early and I watched the UPL, and then I watched the Bundesliga, and then I watched the Serie A. And all those games come in the morning, obviously because of the time difference, and now it's time to watch Apple. So I turn on Apple and I'm all excited and I want to watch the game, and the level was so poor. And I'm just saying that the speed of the game, the realities of what this really presented itself to be coming out of the chutes with Miami and New York was really, really bad. Now, that's the conundrum, right? That's the real issue here. The issue is how do you have compelling television when the games really don't matter? I mean, Peter Vermees is a friend of mine. I love him to death. And he is a guy that has, for the last, I think he's the longest tenured coach in Major League Soccer. He actually lost his first 10 games last year and still made the playoffs. So why are you surprised, Kansas City, that your team came out of the gates and they're already 0-2 and they've lost both of their other games in the CONCACAF Champions League? Of course they did. They're not even going to start to try and sprint until they get, maybe to May, June. And they'll look up and say, oh man, are we still in last? We better get our acts together. Because that's what's wrong with the soccer. Everybody makes the playoffs. Go ahead and look. I mean, it's literally 18 teams make the playoffs. Now, I get it that we'll look at what's happened with the NFL more and more every year. We got to figure out a way to have that wild card in there because we need more teams, which means what? It means more games. It means more television. It means more sponsors. I mean, I looked it up. I mean, one of the biggest paydays for the NFL was Google bought a 90-second ad for $18 million. That's at a Super Bowl, of course. But I mean, you have to maximize these opportunities when you really only have, if you're an owner in the NFL, you only have 8 games in your stadium, 8 opportunities to sell your product, to cash in, hike up the prices, and hope to God you make the playoffs because you might get one more game. If you do really well, you might get 2 games. And then all that TV money kicks back in. TV money, let's get back to it. I made the argument that USL did a very brave thing. Alec Papadakis and his crew, Paul McDonough, you were also a part of that conversation. It's an interesting setup they have over at the USL. They don't have a commissioner. They basically don't have anybody that's going to really take the lead on figuring out who's going to talk to the networks. They got some smart people on the TV side, and they brokered a pretty cool deal with CBS, which got us an opportunity to watch a final where, believe it or not, more people, if you watched the previous one, part 1, you'd know this, more people watched the USL final with 2 teams that virtually nobody had heard of, right? It's Colorado Springs. Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to say that you didn't exist prior to that game, but a lot of people were introduced to a pretty cool game. And the likes of Rhode Island, who would have thought that 2 small markets like that would end up being in the forefront in a USL championship game and dictating a number that was more than was posted for Major League Soccer's final. Now, I said it before, I'll say it again. It just proves that there's a soccer audience starving for compelling television. Promotion and relegation, which is what USL is trying to achieve, is the answer. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I really don't care. In 2018, I ran for president of US Soccer. In those conversations, and I've already gone over this in previous editions of Unleashed, where I had conversations with Don Garber about changing the schedule because I thought it was more conducive to growth and it would give our clubs and franchises a better opportunity to manage their seasons when they were directly in line with the European schedule. It allows managers to be managers, GMs to trade players at the right time, sell players at the right time, and engage in the real business of football. But in 2018, I'll leave the names out of it, we came up with a $250 million television package for the Lamar Hunt Open Cup. Now, why is that? Because it is exactly what it is billed to be. It is a competition that's been around for 110 years, I believe now, that is based on sporting merit, meaning the smaller fish get to play against the bigger fish. And you have an opportunity, whether you want to call it David or Goliath or whatever you want to call it, it still was an opportunity for those small clubs to play against the big boys. And sometimes they win. Sometimes you get a Pittsburgh Riverhound, right? You'll get an unbelievable showing. We did it in Atlanta in 2013 and 14, where my team, a bunch of guys who were second division, were able to beat Major League Soccer teams twice. That's the last thing in the world that Don Garber wanted. Listen to his statements. Here's his statement that he once put out there for everybody. If you're not in line with this deal, you won't be a part of the program. It is a club, and the majority of us are not in it. But for the few that adhere to all the rules and stay with the program, they are a part of it. But they're starting to bark back, and they're starting to take issue with the structure of this whole thing. Now, the story is we came to the table with U.S. Soccer, and I said, I think we've got a great opportunity to enhance the Lamar Hunt Open Cup. It's a great competition. It's the longest standing competition we have in this country, and a great opportunity to grow the game. They always say that. We want to grow the game. No, you don't. And you got to understand that this chess table is rigged. They're starting with the full complement. You don't have a rook, a horse, about 6 pawns, and you certainly don't have a queen or a king, but you're supposed to win that game? No, you're going to lose. And it's always going to be the deck is stacked on their side, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. But when we came at them and we said this would be great for the game, $250 million with a huge purse, right? Something, a carrot, a light at the end of the tunnel for some of these smaller teams. U.S. Soccer and Major League Soccer took one look at that and said, no way. There's no way we can let this happen, regardless of whether it was a good idea, regardless of whether I had been able to convince somebody to put $250 million into this game. They didn't want anything to do with it. And the reason was simple. Major League Soccer in 2018 wasn't where they are now. They hadn't been able to coerce somebody like San Diego to put $500 million in there to pay off everybody else, by the way. But this was a game that they were trying to convince ownership groups that they had the premier product in this country. Major League Soccer was the best soccer they could possibly be. USL is now challenging that. They have Division I status. And as I said before, there are 2 points at the top of that pyramid, which is going to make things fun over the next couple of years. But they didn't want it because the perception of reality was far more important than the reality. It really was. The reality would have been compelling television and a chance for a lower division team, to beat Goliath. That's the last thing in the world they needed. It's the last thing in the world they wanted, and they did everything in their power to make it happen. I'm going to tell you a personal story about something that happened to me. Now, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. You can call me crazy. I mean, it really doesn't matter at this point. However, this actually happened. When my team, the Atlanta Silverback, was participating in the Lamar Hunt Open Cup, we had beaten RSL. We played them off the park. Jeff Cassar and Garth Lagerwey left that game scratching their head. Craig Weibel might have been a part of that as well. Sorry, guys, to bring you up, but it was an embarrassing day for RSL. We were the better team. It sent a message. It really did to everybody that what the hell is going on? How is it possible that a $20 million team can lose to a team that budget on an annual basis was $300,000? Yeah, add it up. It's not fun. It's 22 players, and you only have $30,000 a month because it was a 10-month schedule, and they didn't get paid for the most part of December and January. So add it up. It's a pretty incredible accomplishment. But the most incredible accomplishment for me, and maybe I'm bragging here, but my team went to Colorado at elevation and beat the Colorado Rapids. We beat them 2-1. Now, that's not the end of the story. In the middle of it, we scored once, we scored twice, we were ahead 2-0, and then suddenly the referee decided to issue not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 red cards. 5 red cards. I got red carded. Pablo Mastroeni, who was the head coach of Colorado at the time, also got red carded. It was an altercation between 2 players. Fair enough. They should have been both sent off. But there was 2 other players, for whatever reason, were sent off from my team. Both of them, both black guys, one guy from Liberia, one guy from Ghana, 19 and 10. Boubacar could have possibly seen red for his inclusion in that melee. but Quadro Poku did nothing. The red card was given to to Poku. And I said to the referee, you got the wrong guy. I mean, I get it, the numbers, they look a little bit alike, but he doesn't get a red. But if you want to give him a red, I'm okay with that. I think it's the right thing. So he goes, okay, gives the red card to Bofokar. I said, now you got to rescind the one to number 10. No, I'm not going to do that. Looked me right in the eye. It was the most bizarre moments of my life. I said, what do you mean? So I have to play with 8? And he said, that's right. He then summoned the head coaches of both teams out of their technical area, informed us that he was being assessed, and red carded both of us. Pablo lost his mind. He said, what? You told me to come out here. And as did I. In that moment, my assistant coach, Ricardo Montoya, put his hand on my shoulder and says, everything okay, boss? Referee looks at him and says, is that your assistant coach? And with the biggest smile I've ever seen, gave him a red card and dismissed both of us. Now, why is that interesting? After the game was over, when we managed to win the game with 8 players for 48 minutes, 18 minutes of extra time were given. They tried everything for Colorado to win. It was obviously rigged. There's no other way to look at it. Game was over. My team is celebrating. The liaison for the game, I'm going to leave his name out of it, came in to inform me that my team had, unfortunately, not having 2 A-licensed coaches on the bench at the end of the game meant that by default, we would have to lose the game. We forfeit. It's over. Now, just out of pure luck, and for nostalgic reasons, my really good friend Nick Webster was a part of Cal FC, and we had lived some pretty cool moments. And some of those players who played for Cal FC now played for Atlanta, and I thought it was a good idea to fly him out on my own dime to come and watch the game. It just so happens that I put him in the paperwork, and Nick Webster was sitting on the bench for that game. In the moment that Ricardo Montoya got red carded, I turned to Nick Webster and I said, stay right there. Don't move. Don't come out of the technical area. And don't say anything to anybody or give them any reason to throw you out of this thing, because I knew what was going on. The liaison comes in, he says, you have to forfeit. I said, well, check the paperwork. Nick Webster, for nostalgic reasons, is a part of my staff today. Well, does he have an A license? And I said, yes, he does. The liaison looked at me and said, well, you win. But if that's true, then you win the game. But wow, he wasn't on the flight plan. And I looked at him and I said, what are you looking at a flight plan for? And he said, congratulations, and walked out. I looked at my assistants, and one of my players was in the room, and I said, that was strange. He walked out one door, I opened the door of the hallway, and I looked down the hallway, and I saw him inform a guy who I'd never seen before in my life in a jacket, was all credentialed, and tell him, nope, they're good, they win. He immediately got on his phone, unfortunately walking towards me now, not seeing that I'm looking through a door, and he says, yeah, it's me, didn't work. And I said, you're damn right it didn't work, and he turned around and never saw that guy again. We ended up going to the semifinals of the Marjana Open Cup. This is Don Garber's worst nightmare. An NASL team, you saw what happened with that lawsuit. An NASL team beating the Chicago Fire. We had the right to play at home. I did not have the right, and I lost my 3 best players, but I had to watch this one from the stands. We lost the game. You guessed it, red card, penalty kick. Now, when I talk about the deck being stacked against you, I'm living from real experience. Now, whether you want to believe that or not, that's entirely up to you. But that is the God's honest truth. And that's what happened to my team. Now, that is really unfortunate for a bunch of guys who had won an opportunity through sporting merit to participate in a competition and to prove to everybody that maybe this thing's a little bit closer than we thought. They never got that opportunity. They were eliminated from the competition. I ended up selling most of that team. Quadro Poku went to NYCFC and actually had a fairly great career for himself. But the bottom line is it did not fit the narrative. Go back to that statement from Don Garber. He expects everybody to be on board with his narrative. And when I tried to present a $250 million deal to U.S. Soccer, it didn't go through because Don Garber controls that board. If you really want to waste the money, get on a plane and go to the next board meeting. I can tell you who runs it. It's not the president of U.S. Soccer. She just sits about 2 seats down. She doesn't say a fucking word. This thing that we are trying to make better has a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of things that we need to understand that the tripwire is there. It's almost as good as having to have that book that Indiana Jones had because he had to be able to spell in different languages and duck at the right time and have a leap of faith. That's the only way you're going to get across that bridge. Now, what has to happen next? What will happen next is truly the opportunity. U.S. Soccer is in a weird predicament now because they threw a checklist. They have to check off the boxes, and when you qualify, you qualify. And whether you have the ability to have a first division team, or a first division league, I should say, that is in all 3 of the time zones, by the way, that's part of it. That's part of the criteria. You know how impossible that is? That basically eliminates sporting merit. That in itself, because if all the teams on the East Coast and the West Coast figured it out and the 4 or 5 teams in the middle of the country just had a bad season and they get demoted or relegated, the league now ceases to exist because it doesn't operate in all 3 area codes. Come on. I mean, not area codes, time zone. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. And all of the criteria of having a very minimal amount of, you have to have 15,000 seat stadiums. Okay, look it up. Luton played in the EPL with 11. Come on. If you don't think it's rigged, that's up to you. I'm just telling you that this has been manipulated for the betterment of Major League Soccer and Major League Soccer only. Now, if Louisville and Cruz and those boys get their act together and become, the champions of the league again, they will not have the opportunity to play against Nashville next year. But what a game that would be. Not just waiting for a Lamar Hunt Open Cup, draw to happen to see these 2 teams play against each other. It's not going to happen. Now, in 2027, and that's what it said, the USL will go to a very different format. And when they wrote this in their press release, I just want you to just be smart here. Now think about it. If it would have been 2027, 2028, that would have meant what? That meant that it's going to actually be an August start, and the following year, a spring, June, maybe a early summer finish, which means they're going to the real schedule. If they would have announced, we're going to announce this in 2027, they would have just said that. But they said 2027, 2028. USL, you didn't get past me. Maybe you got to pass most people, but you're going to go to the traditional schedule. Thank you. It's the smartest thing that Paul McDonough, Alec Papadakis, that's the smartest thing, and Justin, I'm not forgetting you, are doing. Because once you go to that schedule, you can make it real. You can engage in the real business of football over the summer, and you can figure out how to make what we all need, and that's compelling television. As soon as you bring promotion and relegation into this, and you do it internally, and you introduce sporting merit to the American people, that's what I'm betting on. That's what I think will be the game changer. That people will say, okay, well, who's playing against who? And every game matters? That was the old NASL mantra. There was like every game matters. And they broke it into 2 seasons, and they essentially, the champion of the first season played against the champion of the second season, and they played for a cup. Now, is that the best way to do it? No. Is it a mutation of what it probably should be? Probably. It's no longer in existence, and it's really unfortunate that that's the case. However, this looks like it's going to be a new era, and I really commend USL for doing this and doing it the right way. Now, if we could ever convince the likes of, well, you have to wait until Don Garber grabs his parachute and jumps out of that plane. But at some point, we'll have a conversation about, let's make this about sporting merit. If you came in last, you're going to play against Louisville or Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay. Who knows? And then we can talk about the criteria necessary for them to play in top flight football after it's over. But for now, we got to deal with a loaded deck. I'm not going to use that word, but a situation that looks and has looked for the last 20 years that it was not going to be something that we could conquer. Times are changing. Ownership groups are getting smarter. They're asking the right questions, and they are starting to figure out that compelling television and a good television deal that people will want to watch will be the reason why this sport takes it to a whole new level. Thank you for watching. That's another edition. I got more.